is that to reach an inner state of peace, of harmony, of joy, that through which we can also help others to reach the same state of peace, of harmony, of joy, so-called nirvana. Okay? But the name is not so important in this case. The most important is the concept. Because for many of us, nirvana is a musical group, right? So, it's like, it's a word. Then what do we connect with it? You know? It's another thing. So we need to understand that what we want truly, it's a deep state of peace, of satisfaction, of harmony, of joy, that is independent of the external conditions in which we find ourselves. Okay? This is one of the fundamental aspects within Buddhist teachings, is that we need to look for a state of peace, of happiness, that is independent of the external conditions. And once we reach this state of peace, that is independent of the external conditions, we can maintain it independently of where we are, with whom we are, in which situation we find ourselves. And this is our main goal. Okay, I think this is quite clear, right? Okay then. And the main goal actually, ultimately, is to help others to reach this state of peace. But I cannot help others if I myself am in the middle of inner chaos, unstable, full of fear and jealousy and envy and anger and this and that. I have not realized this state of peace myself. There is no real way how I can help anyone else to reach this same state of peace. Okay? This is something that in Buddhist teachings have been put with a lot of clarity, that we can only truly help others to develop what we have already developed ourselves. Okay? So, for that reason, we need to put very strong effort to develop ourselves this state of peace so that we can help others to do the same. Now, our lack of peace, our inner conflicts, are coming mainly from our own selfishness, okay? From this obsession with self-gratification. And through selfishness, it manifests as anger, jealousy, fear, miserliness, anxiety, arrogance, insatisfaction. All these are manifestations of selfishness. As Geshe Chekawa in the 7 Points Mind Training said, Lelentam che chiglada, kunla kadrin chewa gom, in Tibetan, which means eliminate the one who is to blame for everything. Familiarize yourself with the kindness of others. The one to blame for everything is our own selfishness. Is this obsession with self-gratification. Is the fact that we are not able to see anything and to relate to anyone independently of the I and the my. Okay? And this is generating all our fears and anger and jealousy and envy and all of that. Selfishness itself comes from so-called ignorance. Ignorance, not intended as not having enough knowledge. Ignorance is the fact that we see things in the way how they are not, no? It is described there are two types of ignorance. The ignorance of not seeing and the ignorance of wrong seeing. There is one form of ignorance in which I don't see something and I don't know. No? It's, for example, if someone asks me what is inside the bowl, and I can say, I don't know, I have no idea what is inside it. This is the ignorance of not knowing. If I say inside the bowl is full of rice, and actually it's full of water, this is the ignorance of wrong knowing. Okay? So, when we talk about the ignorance as the main cause, as the root of our suffering, there is the ignorance of not knowing, which is basically the fact that when we act, we have no idea what will be the results of our actions. And when we experience results in the present moment, we have no idea which were the causes in the past. This is the ignorance of not knowing. Okay? But the actual root of our suffering is the ignorance of wrong knowing. It's an affirmation, it's not a negation. Okay? And it's the fact that whenever we perceive anything, everything that we see, everything that we listen, we touch, smell, taste, or think about, appears to us as if each and every one of these objects existed completely independently from us and from everything else. Okay? We have talked a lot about this in these last days. I'm not going to go through the whole process again right now. Okay? But what happened is that when we look at the other person, when we listen to the sound is there. I have nothing to do with it. No? If I ask you, are you listening to the sound of the bell? The answer is yes. Right? But where is the sound? It's out there, right? I have control over it. Look. I'm making it. Right? But so the sound appears to us as if it existed completely independently from us and independently of everything else. It is simply there. Right? That's how it appears to us, or not? Or it appears to us as being a vibration in the air through which it enters in contact with our ear sense power that is then perceived by our ear sense consciousness, to which we attribute a value to it, and we call it sound of a bell that makes us have certain emotions or whatsoever. Do we have the awareness of all this process? Or simply it's the sound, and the sound is simply there? So the sound appears to us as if it existed in a way that is autonomous, independent of anything else. It is just there. Okay? That's what we call of inherent existence. The bell, the sound of the bell appears to us as being something completely independent, autonomous of anything else. Okay? When we stop to analyze, the sound that each one of us listen is different, because it depends on the vibration of the air. It depends on the ear sense power. It depends on the consciousness. It depends on the value that we attribute. And it's all different. So if we just stop for one moment to think that in this very right moment, the person next to us is listening to a different sound that we are listening. It's not obvious to see it. I will just go once again through it. Why the person next to us is listening to a different sound? Because when I say, oh, this is the sound of the bell, it is made of many parts. There is this vibration in the air. As I touch with the stick the bell, the ball generates a vibration. Okay? The vibration in the air reflects in the different parts of the room and objects, and in a way or in another arrives to our own ears. Who is at home, it enters to the microphone and it goes through internet and reaches out through your speakers or headphones. Right? So it's vibration in the air. Okay? Then what happened? The vibration in the air enter in contact with our own ear sense, which is called, the technical word used is the ear sense power, which is something physical. And if we take any doctor that has specialization in this part of the ear and the hearing and so on, could explain us in many details how the ear sense power of each one of us is actually different. And as we go through our life, it degenerates, the cells, the so on, that allows us to listen degenerates and cannot be regenerated again. No? That's why, for example, we shouldn't listen to music, to sounds that are too loud. Because when we listen to sounds that go above a certain volume, after some time, like 5 minutes or something like that, after a certain period of time, when we keep to that volume, it starts that the cells of hearing start to degenerate very fast. And it's something that we cannot regenerate once again. Okay? So, for example, who explained this to me one time was a friend that he works with his ears. It's his main tool of work, he's making mastering of music. And he likes very much to go to concerts where normally the music's louder than we are supposed to listen to. So he has special things that he put in his ear where he can listen clearly to the sound but with a lesser volume. You know? Because he knows clearly that he doesn't want his hearing capacity to degenerate. So the point is that each one of us, do we have the same hearing capacity or is different? It's different, right? We can listen to different frequencies. There are some frequencies that some people can listen better, others cannot. The fact is that we are all human beings, and because of that, our hearing capacity is very similar. If we take another form of animal, remembering we are an animal, can listen to, has a different physical ear, so can listen to different frequencies that we cannot. So, the vibration of the sound that arrives to each one of us is different because we are in different positions. It's not the same vibration in the air that arrives to my ear and that arrives to the person near to me. The ear sense power is different, even though similar. The ear sense consciousness, the part of our brain, the mind that perceives the vibrations in the ear, that perceives the senses of the ear, it's also different from each one of us. And the value that we attribute to it, saying this is the sound of a bell, I like it, I don't like it, it's pleasurable or not, and so on, it's completely different, even though it may be similar from each one of us. So, as I play the sound of the bell, the vibration that arrives to each one of us is different. The ear sense power is different. The ear sense consciousness is different. The discrimination or the value attributed to it is different. How can we say we are listening to the same sound? If we analyze, can we see the difference? But yet, when we think without analyzing too much, the person near to me is listening to a different sound. Does it feel like, oh yes, or it feel little, that cannot be true? For me at least, when I play the sound of the bell and I think the person near to me is listening to a different sound, I said, come on. It's not exactly like that. It's the same sound. Or not? Because when we listen to the sound appears to us as if it existed independently of us and of anything else. Okay? The same thing happens with everything else. And this is called the appearance of so-called inherent existence, where everything that we perceive appears to us as if it existed independently of everything else, as if it existed in an autonomous, objective, independent way. But actually, when we stop to analyze, we will see that everything that we perceive, it's not independent, it's interdependent, it's not objective, it's subjective. Okay? So, the appearance of so-called inherent existence, autonomous existence, is called the imprints of ignorance. To that appearance, how do we react? Spontaneously. It appears to me as being independent, but I know it's not. Or we relate to the object as if it existed in an autonomous, independent, inherent way. That's what we do. We relate to the object as if it existed in an autonomous, independent, inherent way. Okay? So, now I'm not going to go into details, but because of this, we see ourselves as being disconnected from everything else. We see each and every person as being disconnected from everything else. We see every object of perception as being completely independent one from the other. We are not able to perceive the fact that we are all interdependent. Okay? And on top of that, we believe that what we perceive is the actual reality that everyone else should perceive in the same way. We see the subjective reality as if it was objective. Okay? Now, this is our main form of ignorance. Through this, it generates selfishness, which is the obsession with self-gratification. We are not able to see truly others. We are only able to see ourselves and our own needs and the I and the my. And we see every situation through my needs, myself, and we are not able to see others. And because of this selfishness, we generate anger, fear, hatred, jealousy, attachment, desire, insatisfaction, anxiety, and so on. And we suffer. Okay. So, the issue is that to eliminate truly our suffering, to develop a deep state of peace, we must, at the root, change our way of perceiving reality. In making it very simple, we need to see the subjective reality as being subjective, instead of seeing the subjective reality as being objective. Okay? We need to relate to the subjective reality as being subjective. But to do that, we need to overcome our mind that sees as being objective. The problem that we have here is that our ignorance and our selfishness and so on are not at a intellectual level. Okay, our ignorance is not something that exists only at rational, intellectual level. It goes much, much deeper. Okay, it is on an emotional level and even deeper. So, our mind has a very particular capacity which is on the basis of the path to enlightenment, of all the paths, there is one characteristic of our mind which is fundamental, which is our total inability to have two direct opposite thoughts at the same time. We cannot think, I like water and I don't like water at the same time. We can think one after the other, but not at the same time. Okay? So what happens when we try to eliminate one state of mind that we don't like? It doesn't really work, right? So what's the only way to eliminate a certain state of mind? Generating a direct opposite one. Okay? So, our mind grasped at reality as being of an autonomous, independent reality. We grasp at reality as being objective. What is the direct opposite mind? Reality is not objective. Any object that I perceive doesn't exist as being autonomous, independent of inherent existence, okay? Because when ignorance is an affirmation, the opposite wisdom is a negation, okay? So, on a conceptual level, we can analyze, we can study, we can reflect, we can debate about reality and so on. And that's beautiful and that's wonderful and it's fun and so on. But our problem is that our ignorance is not at a conceptual level. At some things, yes, but that's not the main issue. So it doesn't matter how much I understand the lack of inherent existence conceptually, it will not eliminate my ignorance at a non-conceptual level. Because it's not a direct opposite mode of apprehension. It's not a direct opposite state of mind. Okay? Let's make one practical example. When we look at the mirror, what do we see without analyzing? We see our face, right? If we stop to analyze, are we actually seeing our face or we are seeing the reflection of our face? We are seeing the reflection. Does anybody think that what is in the mirror is our face? Is there anyone here that actually believes that what is in the mirror is our face? Yes or no? No. So are you really sure that what is in the mirror is not your face? You are convinced of it? Yes or not? Yes? See? Okay. Now, you are completely convinced what is in the mirror is not your face. But now, if you close your eyes and you open again in front of the mirror, spontaneously, what are you seeing? My face. Why? Because the mind that grasps at this being my face is not conceptual. It's deeper. Okay? Because none of us have the conceptual idea that, oh, the object that is there is actually my face. We don't have that thought. Okay? Because if we had the conceptual understanding, grasping that the object in the mirror is our face, then the conceptual understanding that is not our face would overcome it. Okay? But it appears as being our face. It's much deeper than just our concept. Okay? Similar to that, we analyze, we reflect, we debate, we study, that reality does not exist in an inherent existing way. Reality is not objective and so on. But yet it appears as being such, and we relate to it as if it was. Okay? So there is a big gap between understanding and realizing. Is this clear? Now, our mind is described of having different levels of consciousness. Okay? Different levels of existence. There is a gross level in which the mind is aware of itself, that it's self-aware, where is the level in which we perceive our senses. So what I am seeing, what I am listening, and so on, what I am thinking. Okay, and this we call the gross level, which is the manifested states of mind, which is more conceptual, not only conceptual, but it is conceptual, and it's also the manifested state, for example, where we perceive what we listen, what we see, and so on. Then there is a deeper level, which is a non-conceptual level of our mind, which is made mainly of emotions. Emotions basically without names. Okay? It's interesting to observe. When we feel an emotion, when emotion starts manifesting, sometimes if we are able to observe well, it starts manifesting as a sort of energy of attraction or aversion or indifference. These are the three possibilities. And often we don't know really what it is, and then suddenly we give a name to it when it manifests. Okay? I remember one study that I read once from one British researcher, one lady, and in this paper that she wrote, she was saying that most of us, according to her research, actually do not know really what we are feeling. And we judge our feelings through the context in which we are. Because we try to find a reason for what we are feeling, and we try to understand what we are feeling by looking at the context in which we are. Okay, and she made many examples of this. And one her own personal example, which I said many times in the teachings. One day she was in the lab working until late, and then another colleague, a friend, came and said, "Oh, would you like to go out to the pub to have a drink?" And then she thought, "Oh, I don't like so much this guy, but okay, just to have an excuse to get out of the lab a little bit and to relax. Okay, let's go." And then she got to the pub, she started drinking some beer. And then after the first beer, more or less, she started feeling some strange feeling inside her guts, like some tickling feeling. And she started feeling heat coming up. Oh, so then she thought to herself, "Oh, maybe I like this guy and I didn't know." Okay? So she said, "Okay, let's have one more beer." And then they ended the evening saying, "Okay, let's meet again." When she arrived home, she had fever and the beginning of a cold. And then she said, "That's my strange feeling. The heat coming up was the fever. But because of the context, I judged that my emotion was something else." Okay? And she also used to do strange experiments with her children. It's like she put on her research. She used for her own research purpose. That when she gave parties for the kids of friends of her children, like birthday parties, she used to do sometimes in the birthday parties, she presented everything like very nice chocolate and very good marmalade and very nice apple juice, but she presents them in the most different appearance. So for example, she took, how do you call this, diapers. She opened diapers and she put the chocolate in a way that it looked like baby poop. And then she made the best apple juice, and she put the apple juice in this thing that you use in the hospital to make pee-pee, no? And then she make bandages, and she put all like these very nice jellies, red jellies on the bandage. And then she bring to people to eat, and people start vomiting. And people could not feel the taste. They say, this looks terrible. Okay? So this was part of her research to show how we judge things much more by the appearance and the context than actually by their inherent characteristics, let's say, no? Okay? So anyhow, all this to say that our own emotions are not so clear as normally we may think they are. When we have emotions, what we do is we judge our own emotions by the context in which we are. But most of the times, they arise and they exist in a deeper level in a way that they don't have names. They are basically attraction, aversion, and indifference. Okay? So in the level of our subtle mind, it is just this game of different manifestations of attraction and aversion and indifference. And that's what is in our subtle mind. Okay? Is the anger, the fear, and so on. So for example, if we at a certain moment of our life, maybe from previous life, maybe from this life, let's talk about this life, we experience a lot of suffering. Okay, and we go through situations that we experience as being violent towards ourselves. And we don't know how to react. We are not able to close the cycle. We are not able to do anything about it. Okay? Very often, this may create inside of us a strong energy of aversion. That is just inside of us, this need of exploding, this aversion that it's inside of us. Then later in life, we go through situations through which this aversion manifests, but we judge it on the present situation, when it's actually something that is already behind there, manifesting in the present moment. Okay? But we don't need to go, this is not the point of today. What I want to say is that we have a subtle mind, which is our emotions without names, without pointing the finger, this is this, that is that. Okay? And they will continue to manifest as long as they are there, in different contexts, in different situations. Okay? Next, there is a very subtle mind. And this very subtle mind, it's a state of mind in which there is no attraction, there is no aversion, there is no indifference even. There are just the imprints of attraction, aversion, the imprints of our habits, the imprints of our actions. They are just like marks. They are not manifested at all. Okay? That's what is called the very subtle level of consciousness, the very subtle mind. Now, our ignorance exists in a gross level, in a subtle level, and also exists in a very subtle level. So, in order to eliminate our ignorance at a gross level, we need to generate the antidote in a gross level. But in order to eliminate our ignorance at a subtle level, we need to generate wisdom at a subtle level. In order to eliminate ignorance at a very subtle level, we need to generate wisdom at a very subtle level. Okay? This is the basic logic. Now, our mind has another characteristic which is explained, that is, whenever it happens that the gross mind loses strength and dissolves, and the subtle mind manifests, and then the subtle mind manifests, that loses strength and dissolves, and the very subtle mind manifests, the direction that the subtle mind takes is the direction of the last thought of the gross mind. Okay? So if I am feeling very strong attachment, and I enter into a more subtle level of consciousness within very strong attachment, which direction will my subtle mind take? Attachment. If I enter into a subtle level of consciousness, through a very subtle level of consciousness, through attachment, which imprint I will make even stronger at my very subtle mind? Attachment. Okay? There are different moments in life in which, through a physical process, and remember, as we said many times in these last days, mind and body are always together. There are physical processes that will naturally bring the mind from a gross level to a subtle level, and then there are other processes that bring the mind from the subtle level to the very subtle level. Okay? The strongest of all these processes is the process of death. When anyone dies, the gross mind loses strength and manifests in the subtle level. The subtle mind loses strength and manifests in a very subtle mind. And the direction that is taken is that of the last thought. Okay? So, it is possible, then there is another moment in which this happens, much, much, much lighter than in the actual death, but it also happens, which is when we fall asleep. Okay? When we fall asleep, we follow the same process of dissolution of the elements, and then the subtle grows, and then the subtle body also. It's the same process as when we die. Okay? We don't enter into details of it right now. But it's exactly the same process. Then there is the gross sleep and the subtle sleep. For example, we will only start dreaming when the subtle sleep is complete. Sometimes we fall asleep, but we don't feel rested, and we don't enter into the subtle level of sleep. This is also possible, for example. Okay? So we will only start dreaming when we complete the cycle from gross sleep to subtle sleep. Okay? Then we start dreaming. So, another moment in which this happens, which is very, 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 very fast and like minimum, but yet it happens. It is described to be the moment of physical pleasure, of orgasm, in which for a very, very short instant there is the same dissolution of the elements happening. Okay? Then there is one more possibility, which is said that through meditation, through exercises by breathing techniques and meditation, it's also possible to induce oneself to these physical processes, similar to the one when we fall asleep or when we die, that actually induce naturally the mind from a gross level to a subtle level up to a very subtle level. Okay? So, why would we want to bring our mind to a more subtle level of consciousness? Just by itself it's nothing special. The only reason is by generating love, altruism, and within a state of love we generate wisdom, the correct view of reality, which is the direct understanding, perception that nothing exists in an inherent way. Okay? And within this state of love and wisdom, we enter into a more subtle level of consciousness, because if we generate wisdom, In a subtle level of consciousness, we eliminate ignorance at a subtle level. If we generate wisdom at a very subtle level, we eliminate ignorance at a very subtle level. And as we just saw before, our main cause of ignorance, suffering, selfishness, and the root of suffering, ignorance, is not in a conceptual gross level only, it's mainly at a subtle and a very subtle level. Okay? So one of the objectives of the Tantric practice, which is a very high objective, we are talking here about something that it's very advanced practice, but it's part of the objective, is that of generating this inner state of joy which is united with love and wisdom, and within this joyful state, which is based with the motivation of love, and that it is on its nature wisdom because it perceives the true nature of reality, within this state, which is also called the union of relative and absolute bodhicitta, within this state, we induce ourselves to enter into a more subtle level of consciousness, and then entering into a very subtle level of consciousness. Okay. Now, let's go back to self-healing practice. What was the first thing that we did in the practice? Breathing. Bringing our mind to the present moment, concentrating on our breath. Then, what we did? Generate the motivation. Love towards oneself, love towards others, bodhicitta. So, on the basis of the whole practice, there is love, there is compassion. Okay? Not any type of love and compassion, a profound love and compassion, in which we take into consideration the all-pervasive suffering and so on. Then within that state, we have been generating the part of accumulating merit, purifying negativities, connecting to the holy beings, requesting the blessings, and so on. Okay? And then we entered in a moment in which we actually first then we meditate on the lack of inherent existence, that everything dissolves. Om Subhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Subhava Shuddhaham. And since that moment of the practice, the best is that if we keep always the awareness that anything that appears, it is actually empty of inherent existence. Okay, that awareness, if possible, should be present. Even when, as we explained in the mudras of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, the left hand is showing always to keep the awareness, keep the perception that nothing exists independently of its causes and conditions and the imputation of the name, that everything lacks inherent existence. This is represented by the left hand. Okay? And yet, we relate with them, yet they exist. So, as we move along the practice, what we have done is that we have focused on our own qualities. We have developed these qualities. We have developed an identity which is based on these qualities. And this is something like first we start dealing with all the manifestations of selfishness, which is fear, jealousy, envy, miserliness, pride, anger, aversion, impatience, insatisfaction, unlimited desire and attachment, mental lack of concentration, mental distraction. Okay? All of these are manifestations of ignorance. And finally, Vairochana, we develop wisdom overcoming our ignorance. Okay? This as we followed the practice of self-healing. This is still happening at a gross level. Okay? Until the Vajra Master Empowerment, we are still working at a gross level, which is a conceptual level, in which we are generating our own identity. I am a pure being. We are identifying ourselves with our inner qualities. we are dealing with our emotions, we are disconnecting our identity from our defilements such as anger and jealousy and so on. Okay? It's a very important process that we did up to here. From here on, which is called the secret empowerment, the wisdom empowerment, and the word empowerment, is the process in which we need to bring this inner state that we have generated of love and wisdom, which is represented by the Vajra Master empowerment. No? Remember, Vajra means great bliss, which is love, compassion, method, male energy. The bell, left hand, represents wisdom, correct view of reality. Okay? The two together is non-dual union of bliss and emptiness, of method and wisdom, of love and compassion. Okay? So when we do the Vajra Master empowerment, the main focus that we have is not in the external appearance, but in the internal experience of the non-duality, represented by the hugging mudra, of love, compassion, great bliss, and wisdom. Which means through a state of love and compassion that is really profoundly blissful, we realize that everything, including one's own self, lacks inherent existence, lacks an objective existence. Okay? So this is the state that we generate. Then, the next step, called the secret empowerment and the wisdom empowerment, is the part in which we shall bring this inner state of union of great bliss and emptiness, of love, compassion, and wisdom, from a gross level to a subtle level, until it reaches a very subtle level, which is the word empowerment. Okay? So, differently that all the rest of the practice of self-healing, as we reach the so-called secret empowerment, all the visualizations are happening inside the central channel. Okay? As we meditate, the visualization, we don't see anymore anything outside. We focus only inside the central channel. Okay? If you remember well, some days ago I explained that our subtle energy winds, the prana, they follow the direction of the visualization, where we direct our mind. You remember that? No? So, when we bring our full attention through our visualization only inside the central channel, this helps to direct our subtle energy winds inside our central channel. Okay? So, now we are practicing in a way which is, we are simulating the actual process, okay? When it truly happens, the practitioner, in this moment of the practice, loses completely contact with all the five senses. There is no more perception of what is seen, what is heard, taste, touch, smell. All this is completely gone. There is just the inner experience, nothing more than that. Okay? So, now we are simulating it, for most of us, okay? Hopefully some of you not, but most of us, we are simulating it. And then, what we do is that we visualize that at our crown chakra, inside the central channel, there is like what is called the white bodhicitta. The white bodhicitta, it's a white substance that it has a cool nature. It's like cold, not cold like ice, but cool, like the perception of the moon. No, it's moon-like. It's given the example of the moon, the rays of the moon, and the red bodhicitta like the rays of the sun. Moonlight and sunlight. This is the two differences, the two metaphors that are being used to help to understand. And this is the energy that comes from our father mainly, which is a substance. There is a physical aspect into it. And it is connected also with this inner experience of bliss. Okay? And it's connected to our male energy, and it's also connected to our own energy of aversion. Remember that the subtle mind is made of aversion, attraction, and indifference. Okay? Aversion doesn't mean anger. Aversion means opposition, distance. Aversion. Simply that. Which is not necessarily bad, huh? And attraction means we want to bring to us. It's not necessarily desire and attachment, okay? These are manifestations of attraction. And indifference is neutral energy, doesn't mean necessarily something bad either, okay? So, what we visualize is that at our crown chakra, there are different ways of visualization. I will explain one. We visualize that inside our crown chakra there is this white bodhicitta. First we bless it with Om Ahum. Okay? And then as we do the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, and we clap our hands, we imagine that the white bodhicitta descends within the central channel. Okay? And we can imagine that it's a little bit like honey. Honey, miele, coming down, okay? But it's white. And as it goes down, actually, it fills the whole central channel. And when it reaches each one of our chakras, it enters into all the other channels. And it, as this white bodhicitta passes through our body, every part that it touches, it generates an incredible inner experience of bliss, of pleasure. So we only visualize inside the central channel, but we imagine that as it goes down, we experience this inner state of pleasure, of bliss, that as it descends, the bliss increases more and more and more and more. Okay? And this is described by what is called the 4 or the 16 blisses. Okay? Which is 4 or 4 multiplied by 4. Okay? So what we say is, Chivo ne drimba leba na gawa, drimba ne nyinga leba na choka, nyinga ne tewa leba na kiega, kiega ne tewa sangnegi leba na linkigi gawa. Which means, from the crown to the throat, we experience bliss or pleasure. From the throat to the heart, we experience excellent bliss. From the heart to the navel, we experience special bliss. And from the navel to the secret chakra, we experience spontaneous great bliss. Okay, these are different names that are given to explain to us that actually it's like a, how to say, crescendo. It's increasing. So as the white bodhicitta descends slowly, we have this inner experience of bliss that overwhelms our whole body and mind more and more. Okay? So as we visualize the red bodhicitta coming down, the white bodhicitta coming down, there is nothing more than this immense sensation of bliss. And remember, as we explained some days ago, when we experience pleasure, there is no space for conceptual thoughts. No? If you drink something good, as you experience the pleasure, there is just the pleasure. The pleasure has many qualities. It brings us to the present moment. It takes away conceptual thoughts. The problem is that we get attached to pleasure. Okay? But pleasure itself is wonderful. The problem is that it becomes our goal, not our tool. And it should be our tool. So in this moment, pleasure is not the objective. Pleasure is the tool. So as we experience this incredible bliss, through this inner state of great bliss, we perceive that everything, the bliss itself, lacks inherent existence, appears to us as being of an autonomous, independent reality when actually it is not. Okay? So basically what we are doing, in a way, trying to make it simple, is that this inner state of great bliss and emptiness that we realized as we did in the Vajramaster empowerment, by the descending of the white bodhicitta, we bring it from a gross level to a more subtle level. But we keep this perception that it appears as white, blissful state, and it's empty of inherent existence. Okay? So, we focus on this bliss, that it goes through the whole body, entering all the 72,000 subtle energy channels of our body. No, it's like we imagine our whole nervous system and our whole lymphatic system and all the different vessels of our body. Everything is filled up with bliss. And it's completely physically overwhelming and mentally overwhelming. And through that state, we realize non-conceptually, which is a continuation of the realization of before, that everything lacks inherent existence. Okay? So this is called the first part of so-called secret empowerment. The mantra that we recite is Om Mani Padme Hum. Om means body, speech, and mind, or gross, subtle, and very subtle body and mind. Mani means jewel, literally. Padme or Peme means lotus. Okay? So Om, jewel, lotus, Hum. Hum is the union. Hum represents the enlightened mind. Okay? So, Mani, jewel, is a symbol representing male energy. Great bliss, love. Okay? Just as the Vajra. Peme, lotus, represents the female energy. Left side, the bell, which is wisdom. So the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, which is maybe the most well-known mantra, it is said that it represents the essence of all Buddha's teachings, which is the union of method and wisdom. And actually, the mantra, it's so simple, but at the same time, so powerful and deep. And when I first gave this explanation that Rinpoche taught us, I explained to my guru in Tibet, the abbot of Tashilhunpo Monastery, Kachin Losam Phuntsho Rinpoche, as I was explaining self-healing to him. When we reached this moment of the practice and I gave this explanation, he said, wow, finally I understood why the mantra Mani Padme Hum is the essence of all Buddha's teachings, you know. It's like, it's something that is so obvious, but at the same time is not self-evident. Or maybe it's so self-evident that we don't see it sometimes. We try to go for many difficult explanations, but just look at the words. Om, which is the body, speech, and mind. We have Mani, jewel, which is a symbol for the male. Peme, lotus, is a symbol of female. Male and female here is not man and woman. It's representing method and wisdom. It's representing great bliss, love, compassion, method, and wisdom, the correct view of reality. Hum is the union of both. Okay? At a gross, subtle, and very subtle level, which is represented by the Om. Okay? So if we want, one of the descriptions of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum is the Om represents gross, subtle, and very subtle body, speech, and mind. So at a gross, subtle, and very subtle level, we unite Hum, what? Jewel and lotus, which is method and wisdom, great bliss and emptiness. Okay? So, Om Mani Padme Hum. So as we do the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, we clap our hands. And as we go down, we clap at each chakra. Depending the way how we recite, we can sing. So when we sing, we clap more times. When we recite, we clap normally 2 times. We start normally with clapping with the right hand going forward. Okay? We start with the right hand going forward. Okay? So. And as we do the mudra, we visualize the white bodhicitta coming down to our central channel. And we experience this inner state of great bliss. Everything is based on love and compassion, which is the basic motivation of why we are doing all of this. And within this state of great bliss, we realize that everything lacks inherent existence. Okay? Then, after that,
when we lose the perception, so how do we realize if we have no the thought, the conceptual thought?
no, basically, you don't realize you don't have more conceptual thought because that's a conceptual thought itself. Okay? You just experience it. Okay. No, it's just the order, no? We could start like this or we could start like this. We always start with the left hand in the front and the right hand behind. Okay? That's at least how I remember it. Okay? And this is one thing. This was added by Geshe Tender. Then, after that, we have the second part of the so-called secret empowerment, which is the moment in which we focus on the female energy. The female energy is also called the red bodhicitta, which is the part of the physical substance which is given by our mother. And it is below the navel. And it is of the nature of heat and red. Okay? So, what we do is that first we bless it with Om Ahum, if we recite it or not, but as we put our hands together, in order to create the condition for it to move inside our central channel. So, then, what we will externally do, always with the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, we snap our fingers, okay? And the explanation that Rinpoche gave why we snap our fingers in different forms, it's representing the subtle energy winds that are necessary to move the red bodhicitta upwards. Okay? So, we start by the secret chakra, and first we snap our fingers, starting with the left hand forward. Okay? And we do forward and backward in the secret chakra with Om Mani Padme Hum. Then in the navel chakra, we do inside and outside, starting with inside. Okay? How many times we do depends how we sing the mantra. Okay? Okay? But normally, if we start with the inside, we end with the outside. If we start with the left one going frontwards, we end with the right one going to the front. Okay? So we have secret chakra, back and forth. Navel chakra, in and out. Heart chakra, in and out in this way. We start with the left hand in the front, the right hand behind. Okay, looking forward, outside. Then we close in the opposite way. Okay? Then we go on the throat chakra, which is left and right, starting with the left, right, left, right. Okay? And then again in the crown, back and forth, starting with the left hand to the front. Okay? So this is the mudras that we do as the red bodhicitta move upwards. So once again, from the sacral chakra, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and Om Mani Padme Hum. Okay? When singing, in the last two mantras, we add the Ri. Okay? The syllable Ri is the syllable of Avalokiteshvara. And it's like an addendum to the mantra. Okay? It's not part of, let's say, it's part of the mantra, but it's like an extra part of the mantra. Okay? Normally when we do the mantra Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, it doesn't have the Ri. The Ri is something which is connected to Avalokiteshvara, which is the Buddha of compassion. And from my own understanding, in this moment of the practice, we add the Ri mainly because of a singing reason. It's like out of the melody, there is this extra syllable that we add. So for example, when we do the practice reciting and not singing, we do without the Ri. We just do Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum in all the chakras. Okay? So, the visualization. Again, we are focused only inside the central channel. And we focus that this red energy, which is in the nature of warmth, like fire. It's not burning like fire, but it's warm like fire. It moves upwards. Okay? And then we focus. And what we can even do in this moment is we breathe in. We bring our breath below the navel. We contract our lower muscles, bringing the energy up. We focus below our navel. We try to focus for some time. Doesn't need to be very long, but we focus a little bit, 3 fingers below the navel. And we imagine the red bodhicitta there. And we start imagining this heat building up there. And then from inside the central channel, we just imagine this red energy moving upwards. And as it goes upwards, it first arrives into the navel chakra. And as it arrives in the navel chakra, it enters all the subtle channels of the navel chakra. Okay? So it fills also the secret chakra, then the navel chakra, then the heart chakra, then the throat chakra, and then the crown chakra. And as this red energy moves upwards, once again we experience this profound bliss. This state of pleasure that overwhelms every part of our body and mind. And within that state of great bliss, we realize that everything lacks inherent existence. The same things as before, okay? So, in the first way, we are somehow bringing our mind to a deeper state of consciousness, non-conceptual state. And here again, we do that once again. And the first moment we do through the male energy of white bodhicitta, which is connected to aversion. Then we do to the female energy of the red bodhicitta, which is connected to attraction. Okay? And then with this we complete what is called the secret empowerment. Okay? And one of the meanings of it is that we are inducing ourselves to a deeper level of consciousness within the state of love and wisdom, of great bliss and emptiness. Okay, is it clear? Okay. Then, after that, and one of the very special aspects of self-healing is that Rinpoche is teaching us all of this and is showing us the practice, focusing on the actual meaning of what is happening inside of us, and not so much on external metaphors and symbolism. Okay? Because if we look in many ancient texts, this whole part of the secret and wisdom empowerment, it's very difficult to get the meaning. because it is all done through symbology, and it's a symbology that many of us may not really understand it, because it's a symbology that is symbolizing the union of the male and the female energy, and is mainly using sexual symbols of the sexual union and so on. And this is something that, we are nowadays in a culture that at the same time that sexuality and sex is everywhere, it's a big taboo. And we need to think that 1,000 years ago in India it was not. And it's a complete different way of dealing with it. But it's all there representing this inner state. Also, you may see in some paintings or in some images like of Buddhas, male and female in sexual union. Okay? What this is representing, different things, but one of the main things is the perfect balance and harmony between male and female energy. And it's representing that in a very mundane perspective, the greatest state of bliss that humans are able to experience is the sexual bliss. And it is said that the state of bliss that comes from this inner experience is thousands and thousands times stronger. But but we need to connect to people using what people know. That's what we need to do. So for many centuries, this metaphor, this symbolism has been used in order to say to us, look, you need to develop this great bliss. Okay? And then I just take the opportunity to make clear that in Buddhism, Tantra is not about sex. Because sometimes there is this connection that people think, Tantra, this is something directly connected to the physical act of sex. And it has nothing to do. Tantra is connected to an inner process in which it also uses our inner energies of male and female energy and so on. And in different cases, it uses the symbolism of the physical union of male and female. Okay? So, this is just to make clear in this point. So one thing which I'm very grateful to Rinpoche is that Rinpoche, in this specific part, which is called the secret empowerment, Rinpoche showed us and he taught us how to do it, going directly to the essence, which is the actual male energy and female energy, and generating this inner experience of great bliss and emptiness, and not the whole external symbology. Okay? But if you go to any initiation or self-empowering text of any of the common practices on Vajrayana, when you reach this point, it's all done with a very difficult to understand symbology. Let's put it in this way. Okay? So, I'm very grateful to Rinpoche that in different parts of self-healing, what he did was that he really kept the true essence and he made in a way that we can be in contact with it. Okay? So after that, it's called the secret empowerment because it is based on two substances that are said to be secret, which is the male energy of the white bodhicitta and the red bodhicitta of the female energy. These are called the two substances, which are said to be secret substances. Secret, what secret means? It's interesting because in our culture, something that is secret means something that is hidden from others. In the context in which the word secret has been used, secret means something that cannot be seen and understood by those that are not ready to see and understand. It's a very different meaning. In one meaning, how we see it normally in the West, secret is something that is hidden from others. On the other meaning, secret is something that cannot be seen and understood by those that are not ready to see and understand it. Okay? So here is the second meaning. It means it's a part of the practice that until you are not able to understand and to perceive and to know how to use these two type of energies, this part of the practice remains very superficial. So it's secret. Okay? The next part is called the the wisdom concert empowerment, normally known as the wisdom empowerment. Okay? The meaning of this is that it's the moment of the practice in which, in order to bring our consciousness to a still deeper level, is the moment in which we focus on uniting the male and the female energy. Okay? So when it talks about the wisdom concert, it means the union of male and female energy in an inner state, not in a physical form. Okay? It is not something that regards the physical union of male and female, it regards the inner union of these two energies. Okay? There are different ways of visualization here. I will show one of ways of visualization which is coherent with what we have explained up to now. So, we recite Om Maha Sukha Hum. Om, again, body, speech, and mind, or gross, subtle, and very subtle. Maha means great. Sukha means pleasure, bliss. Okay? Hum means the state, the mind. Okay? Om Maha Sukha Hum. So, Om Maha Sukha Hum means Om great bliss Hum. This is the literal meaning of the mantra. So in this moment, we focus that all the winds of energy, they completely absorb into the central channel, already from before, but now even stronger, and they start moving everything to the center of our central channel. Okay? So imagine all the energy winds, they are like, pushing everything inside the central channel towards the heart. From both sides, from down to up, from up to down. And everything is moving towards our heart. So basically, in this moment, we imagine the white and the red bodhicitta, because first the white bodhicitta descend, then the red bodhicitta went up, and now they joined at each one of the chakras. Okay? So as they mix together, becoming like white and red becoming pink. So imagine these two mixing together at our crown. And as they mix together, we experience this great bliss in the crown chakra. And then it's like if the whole energy absorbs into the throat chakra. And then they mix also in the throat chakra. And then everything absorbs and goes in the direction of the heart. The same thing happens from the secret chakra. The two energies mix and we experience an even greater state of bliss. And then it absorbs. And then we experience in the navel. And then this great bliss, and then it moves upwards, up to the heart. Okay? If we had 4 arms, we will do the mudra together at the crown and the secret, at the throat and the navel. So it will be something like this, and like this. Okay? But apparently we have only 2 arms, right? So we do crown, throat, secret, navel, and finally we do in the heart. Okay? But in the process of visualization, we imagine that the 2 energies are uniting at the crown and the secret, at the throat and the navel, and finally together at the heart. Okay? So it's like if all this incredible bliss that we have generated, based on the male and female energy, then they unite and the bliss becomes even stronger bringing our mind to even a deeper level of consciousness. Because what it says is that the stronger is the pleasure, the deeper is the bliss, the less conceptual is the mind. Okay? So, in this moment, we experience even a greater state of bliss as the two energies melt, and then gradually everything moves towards our heart. It's like if all the senses starts absorbing, and all the energy starts moving, and everything absorbs in the so-called indestructible drop inside our heart. Okay? At our heart chakra, in the center of our heart chakra, it is what is called the indestructible drop. I explained it some days ago, which is said to be like a nutshell, which is generated in the moment of conception, where the very subtle body and mind are. Okay? So in this moment, we meditate that everything absorbs into it. And as in the conclusion of the last Mahasukha, we experience this immense state of bliss through which we realize that everything lacks inherent existence. The awareness of the lack of inherent existence, the mode of apprehension of the lack of inherent existence remains all the time. From Om Mani Padme Hum, all the moment, it's like this crescendo of great bliss that realizes the lack of inherent existence. And it goes deeper and deeper, stronger and stronger. And when we do the last Mahasukha, Om Mahasukha Hum, everything absorbs into the heart, and then in this moment there is this state of total blackout. Because there is no more conceptual thoughts. There are no more conceptual thoughts. There are no more emotions. There is no more attraction, aversion, indifference. It's all completely gone. Okay? There is this amazing, overwhelming state of bliss that realizes emptiness, and for a moment, even that is not anymore self-aware. Everything like completely blacks out. Okay? This is when we conclude the Mahasukha. And this total blackout represents us entering from a subtle level of consciousness to a very subtle level of consciousness. Okay? Then, this is what we call the wisdom concert empowerment. Okay? There are different types of visualizations that can be done here. Inside the book of self-healing itself, Rinpoche described different types of visualizations. I prefer today to explain this visualization because we have been explaining self-healing very much into somehow the essential meaning. Okay? And this doesn't mean that other visualizations are less important or are wrong. This is one focus that we are giving. Okay? Because there is the moment in which, for example, we visualize in each chakra the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and they are in union, and then all the Buddhas absorb into each one of them, and they enter into the union of great bliss and emptiness, and then they absorb. Many complex visualizations. But the meaning finally is that through the union of the male and female energy, we enter into a state of great bliss. Okay? So, here, first we do the Om Mani Padme Hum. No? Then we do the Mahasukha. The reason why, when doing Mahasukha, the mudra is with two fingers like this, okay, is because it represents that we are holding Vajra and Bell. And the way of holding Vajra and Bell is normally with the thumb and the 2 middle fingers, okay? Okay, so it's not that this is the actual mudra like heavy metal or something, and we need to do this mudra, okay? That's not the sense of it. The sense of it is that it's representing that we are holding the Vajra and the bell, okay? And normally the way of to hold the Vajra and the bell is that we don't hold it like this, with a full closed fist. We hold it like this, okay? So when we do the hugging mudra, it represents that we are holding the Vajra and the bell in our hands, okay? This is just to explain a little bit the reason of the mudra, okay? So even if we do with the hands a little bit more, like a sort of hug, it's also okay, but the best is if we just touch the thumb together with the two fingers. So it's not like this, it's like this, okay? So with the thumb, we are not touching the nails. We are touching the back of our fingers, not the front, or the front or the back, whatever you see it as front and back, okay? But we have a camera you can also see, okay? So this is the meaning when we do the Mahasukha mudra, okay? So, once again, in this moment of the practice, the meaning that what it represents, what we are imagining, is that we are bringing ourselves to a subtle level of consciousness through the use of the male energy of true bliss, female energy by generating bliss, and then the union of the male and female energy and making all the subtle energies to absorb into our heart. Okay? Which is exactly the process that happens in the moment of death. Okay? So today in the beginning I was explaining that there are some physical processes that allows us to enter into a more subtle level of consciousness. Okay? Which is death, sleep, orgasm, or true meditation. Okay? So in all these processes, what happens is that the earth dissolves into water, water into fire, fire into wind, wind into the space of consciousness. This is the gross part. Then there is the subtle part, which is called white vision, which is a white bodhicitta dissolving. Red vision, the red bodhicitta dissolving. Black vision, when everything absorbs into the heart chakra. Okay? Then there is the conclusion, which is called clear light. So, up to here, we have been first purifying and transforming our gross body and mind and our identity. And then once we have generated this state of great bliss and emptiness in a gross form, we bring that experience, that state, to a subtle level of consciousness, and from a subtle to a very subtle. Okay? This process exists in 3 moments, but I will explain that later. Okay? Which is 3 multiplied by 3, which makes the 9 mixings. Okay? Which is these 3 processes. We could do it during. We do this process of of generating this inner state of wisdom and compassion on a gross level, bringing it to a subtle and then to a very subtle level. We do this through meditation. Then once we are expert in meditation, we can bring this experience to our sleep. And once we become expert in doing it in our sleep, we can truly make it in the moment of our actual death. Okay? So this is the process. This afternoon we can talk a little bit more about it later. Okay? So right now we are in the first part, which is training in our meditation. We imagine, we simulate in order to gradually make it happen as an inner experience. Okay? So, is this first 2 parts of the secret empowerment and wisdom empowerment more or less clear? Okay? First we generate the white bodhicitta, white and male energy. As it goes down, great bliss. Then the female energy move upwards, generating again great bliss. Through the whole process, we perceive the lack of inherent existence. We are in contact with the true nature of reality. Then, and while we generate this, there is no space for ignorance. There is no space for selfishness. Then we make all the energies to unite, and as they unite together, gradually they absorb. It's like if there is the winds pushing from below to above, from above to below, and everything is absorbed into the heart. No, that's normally when I give the description of the practice, I say all the energy that have been generated up to here is absorbed into our heart. Okay? So we imagine all the subtle energy winds and everything absorbing and dissolving into our heart. And in this moment we enter into the sort of total blackout. And with this we conclude the Om Mahasukha Hum, which is the so-called wisdom empowerment. Okay. Then, after that, we enter into what is called the word empowerment. The word empowerment is called word empowerment because it's an experience that is... The word empowerment is called word empowerment because it is an experience that is beyond words. It's something that we cannot conceptualize in any form. Okay? That's why it's called the word empowerment. It's an inner state that is completely beyond any conceptual understanding and explanation. So, this is why it's called the word empowerment. It's an inner state that is an experience, an inner state that is completely beyond words. Okay? So here we have the representative word empowerment and the actual word empowerment. As we do the practice as beginners and intermediate practitioners, until the very last moment, we are always in the representative word empowerment. The actual world empowerment is enlightenment itself. Okay? So basically, what it symbolizes as we do the practice, from within this total blackout appears the so-called state of clear light. Okay? That we meditate in what is called the mother clear light. The mother clear light is the natural process of our own very subtle mind manifesting as the gross and the subtle mind dissolved. And remember, whenever I say mind, the body is always together. Whenever we say body, the mind is always together, okay? So when we talk about the very subtle mind, the very subtle body is together with it. When we say the gross mind and the subtle and the gross body and subtle body, the mind is also together with it. So here, what we meditate is basically that out of this total blackout, which is the moment in which the subtle body and mind dissolved, just as after a very dark night without moon, the first rays of the sun start to appear, bringing light. Similar to that, there is this inner experience of light manifesting. Okay? And this symbolizes the manifestation of our very subtle body and mind, our very subtle consciousness manifesting. So in our meditation, we visualize that from this total blackout, gradually we start seeing this light that manifests until it becomes completely overwhelming. Everything is filled by this beautiful light. Okay? Until the moment this light symbolizes our own very subtle consciousness being self-evident, being manifested. Okay? Because let's make the following metaphor. Imagine that we are in a place where there is a lot of noise. Okay? So we have a lot of all sorts of noises. Then there is also some very subtle sound also. The subtle sound is there, but can we perceive the subtle sound when we have many loud noises? No. Then when the loud noises stop, the less loud noises, the middle volume noises, start to become more clear. We start to listen to them better. Then when the middle volume noises somehow fade away, they stop, then there is a moment in which that very, very subtle noise, sounds, start to become more evident, and we can listen to it much better. It's not that it became louder, it simply becomes more manifested because there are no others that overwhelms it. Okay? It is like that. I read one time one article that was saying that there is this silence chambers that exists for scientific uses. So our rooms where there is a sort of total silence. There is no any sound coming from outside. It's completely protected. There is one in the headquarters of Microsoft that they use to test certain, when they need to make tests of all this equipment to see how much sound it makes and so on. And it's like many, many, many floors underground, built in like one box inside the other in a whole very complex way. So there is no any vibration arriving from outside. And people cannot stay there, like the experts that are used to do it are completely incapable of staying there more than 40 minutes. That's the record. Because it is said that when anyone enters into this room and closes the door, there is no reflection of noise inside, of sound. And after some time, you start to listen to sounds that you never listened before. You start to listen to your own heart beating. Your own breath looks like almost like a hurricane. And then after some time, you can even start listening. It says that after some time, you can start listening to a strange sound, which is the sound of the movements inside our blood vessels. And all these inner sounds that we start, and we move and we listen to the crack of our bones and things like that, no? And it is very disturbing, it is said. And it is said that people that when they go into it, they need to slowly go out. If they go out right away, they open the door and they go to the normal world right away, it can be with very bad side effects. It's very strong. Okay? So imagine our very subtle mind, it's something that it's there, but we cannot perceive it. It's not self-evident. Why? Because there's so much things, much louder noises around. So this moment is when we stopping all the louder noises, and the total blackout after Mahasukha is like when all the loud noises of every type, they're completely off. And for a moment, it's like if there is total silence. Then, gradually we start to perceive these more subtle sounds until it becomes very powerful and completely evident. Okay? So the same thing is with our own mind. When we have many conceptual thoughts, we are not able to perceive our more subtle emotions. When we have less conceptual thoughts, we can perceive more clearly our own intuition and our subtle emotions and so on. When that subtle emotions also fade away, then we can even perceive the most subtle aspect of our mind becomes self-aware. Okay? So this is the so-called state of clear light. So the objective is to generate this very subtle state of body and mind with love and wisdom. So in this moment of the practice, we meditate that, we imagine that out of this total nothingness, this total blackout, a light rays start to manifest, and gradually it becomes very powerful. And there is nothing more that is infinite nothingness, full of light, that lacks inherent existence, because from the very beginning we are always perceiving everything that appears as lacking inherent existence. It is experienced through great bliss. It's very blissful, the whole experience. And then we generate this identity in which we say, I am. This very subtle experience of great bliss that perceives the lack of inherent existence in nothingness. Wherever there is bliss, there is emptiness. Wherever there is emptiness, where is bliss. Wherever there is bliss and emptiness, I am there. I am this union. So-called Dharmakaya. Okay? So the point here is to generate an identity in which we identify ourselves within this very subtle level of body and mind that experience the true nature of reality. Okay? That's the objective. Okay? So in this moment, we identify not only with the mind, but also with the body. So that's why it is called the union of clear light, which is the very subtle mind, and illusory body, which is the very subtle body. Okay? So we identify ourselves, I am this very subtle body and mind, and I perceive the true nature of reality within this very subtle level of existence. Okay? I'm oversimplifying it somehow, but trying to explain in a way that we can all somehow grasp at the meaning. Okay? In this moment of the practice, what we recite, it has both the meaning of this meditation and it also functions as a dedication. So, the word that we say is Om Bishwa Shanti Hum. No? As we put, with both hands we do what is called the Vajra fist, in which we put the thumb at the basis of our ring finger. Okay? This mudra, it means that in our ring finger flows what is called the channel of great bliss. So the meaning of putting the thumb at the basis of the ring finger and closing, it has the meaning of not being attached to bliss itself. Great bliss, pleasure, is just a tool, it's not a goal. So with the left hand, we put on the side of our hip, and with the right hand, always with the thumb touching the root of our ring finger, we put the hand on our heart. Okay? We open the hand. We don't have a closed fist, but we open it. Okay? And as we do this, we recite Om Bishwa Shanti Hum. Okay? Om Bishwa Shanti Hum, which is translated by the power of the truth, peace and bliss now and forever. So what's the meaning of this? What is the truth? It's interdependence. It's that everything is connected. Nothing exists independently of causes and conditions of its own parts. Nothing exists independently of the relation of observer and object and so on. Okay? By the power of the truth, peace and bliss now and forever. Peace, it's a synonymous for emptiness. Bliss is great bliss. So by the power of the truth, through the power of the interdependence, may I experience, may there be always a permanent state of peace and bliss, which is the state of Buddhahood. Okay, the state of Buddhahood is described as a permanent state of peace and bliss, a permanent state of a deep, profound bliss that is constantly connected to the true nature of each and every phenomenon. Okay? Which is represented by the Vajra and the bell and the hugging mudra, which is so-called Vajradhara, the holder of non-duality, of great bliss and emptiness. Okay? It's the same meaning, by the power of the truth, peace and bliss now and forever. Okay? For many of us as beginners, this is the moment in which we dedicate. Oh, peace and bliss now and forever. May everyone experience peace and be joyful and so on. Okay, which is wonderful. In the deeper meaning, it means that we are focusing on the ultimate state of enlightenment. It's in the heart, because our heart, it's where our very subtle body and mind lies. Okay? Actually, to be more precise, the heart is not so much to the left, but it's in the center of our body. Okay? And it's in the center of our body where is our very subtle body and mind. Okay? That is in this moment self-manifested. So, we could go on many complex explanations on this moment of the practice, but the essence that we can meditate is that we develop a self-identity. I am the Buddha. I am this very subtle body and mind that realizes the true nature of oneself and every phenomena as being empty of inherent existence within a state of great bliss. Okay? And then there are some visualizations in which from within this clear light we appear as a Buddha, such as, in this case, Vajradhara, okay? Made of light, which is symbolizing, in this moment, to visualize ourselves as the physical aspect of a Buddha, symbolizes identifying oneself not only with the very subtle mind, but also with the very subtle body, and having one identity that upholds both. Okay? So, in this moment, basically, we connect with this very subtle body and mind that perceives the true nature of reality within a state of bliss on the basis of love and compassion, which is the enlightened mind. So as we started from the motivation and we reached this part of the practice, what it represents, we were building up the whole process until we reach enlightenment. We are simulating the whole process until we reach the ultimate state of enlightenment. That is being represented by the so-called word empowerment. Okay. Can we see this process that we went through? That we started when we generate the motivation, and then gradually we develop our qualities of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and then our gross level, then we enter into subtle level, and then we go into very subtle level, because what reaches enlightenment is not the gross body and mind, it's the very subtle body and mind. Okay? So we are simulating the process of reaching enlightenment. So after we finish that, we recite Lama kuncho sumla kyapsuchi rangni lasse dodri sungneche donga chosung nyerche tadadom gyecho kuntu chishin drotun che. Let's look at the meaning of this verse. Sometimes we think this verse is there in order to be a dedication, but it's not. It's have a very specific function, this verse, okay? So the verse says, Lama kuncho sumla kyapsuchi, I take refuge in the Guru and in the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Lama kuncho sumla kyapsuchi. Rangni, myself, hasel, clearly as the deity. I appear clearly as the deity, as the Buddha. Rangni laser, dotril, do is dorje, tril is tribul, sungne che. Che means I act. Okay? By holding Vajra and bell clearly as the Buddha. So I take refuge in the Guru, in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I appear clearly, I see myself clearly as a Buddha, as a pure being, holding Vajra, which is great bliss, love and compassion method, and the bell, wisdom. And through great love and compassion, I act. Sungne che. Okay? Che means conduct, action. Rangila se dori sungne che. Donga che sung nirche tadadom. Do means sutra. Ngak means tantra. Donga che sung nirche tadadom. So I commit to uphold all the teachings of sutra and tantra. I commit myself to sustain, to uphold the Sutra and Tantra through my own activities, Gecho kuntu chishin drotunche. Gecho kuntu, gecho or gecho, I think gecho kuntu chishin drotunche. Kuntu means always, gecho means virtuous conduct. Through a virtuous conduct, through according to the Dharma, conduct, with a conduct that is in accordance with the Dharma, with a virtuous conduct, gecho, such as generosity, morality, patience, joyful effort, concentration, and wisdom, with a virtuous conduct, gecho kuntu, all the time, gecho kuntu chishin drotunji, just as in accordance with the virtuous conduct, all the time I will act for the benefit of sentient beings. Drotun, dro means migrators, sentient beings, tun means meaning, che means to do. So I will act for the benefit of all sentient beings at all times by acting in accordance with the Dharma. Okay? So what is the meaning of this last verse? I take refuge in the Guru, in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I appear clearly as a Buddha, holding Vajra and bell. I will practice, I will maintain the teachings of Sutra and Tantra, which means I will hold love towards myself, I will hold bodhicitta loving others, I will practice the correct view of reality, I will transform, I will do this true great bliss, I will transform death, I will practice the Tantra and the Sutra, and I will act for the benefit of every sentient being by acting with my actions, my words, and my thoughts in accordance with the Dharma. Okay? This verse refers to the conclusion of the practice, which in Tibetan is called Tunzam Gilhar Keba. So, we are in the moment, Tunzam Gilhar Keba means generating the deity for the moments between sessions. Okay? So basically, there we are in clear light. And we stay in that state for some time, in this beautiful union of clear light and illusory body, in this very subtle state of consciousness and body. Okay? Then, within that state, we generate the intention. In order to be of benefit for others, I must interact with others. And in order to interact with others, I must manifest myself in a way that others can perceive. So if I just stay in this state of clear light, only other Buddhas can perceive me. So because of that, I must manifest myself into a gross body, subtle and gross body, in order to help other sentient beings. So then, in an instant, from the state of clear light and illusory body, the whole universe appears again, and we appear in a gross body with one face and two arms, with a body perfectly balanced with the 5 chakras, with method and wisdom, which means holding Vajra and bell, to act in our daily life for the benefit of others. Okay? And with this we conclude the cycle. Not only I go from my own state of suffering as I started by generating the motivation, I go until the state of enlightenment, and then after reaching the state of Buddhahood, I manifest again myself in this gross body in an ordinary appearance in order to interact and help sentient beings. Okay? In which I am simulating what a Buddha does, which is to manifest in a gross level to help others. Okay? And once we have done that, then we do the final dedications. Okay? So it's important, this last part, because that closes the circle. Okay? Okay. So, with this, we somehow complete the whole process of the circle of self-healing. There are the 2 parts that we need to explain. One part is the dedications. Another part, which I like to explain briefly, is called the Vajra recitation that we do with the Om, Ah, Hum, Pe, Om, Hum, Ah. Okay? And I also said before that I would explain what is called the 9 mixings. Okay? So we will do this after lunch. Okay? And I just hope that now, when we talk about the 4 empowerments, you have a little bit more clear picture. Okay? So, vase empowerment is where we transform the gross body and mind. And we generate an identity which is based on great bliss and emptiness, which is based on love and compassion. So we generate this ultimate state of Buddhahood at a gross level, which is the conclusion of the vase empowerment. Then this identity we bring to a subtle level through the secret empowerment. We make the use of the white bodhicitta and the red bodhicitta, and we make the use of great bliss to bring us to a more subtle level of consciousness within this state of bliss and emptiness. Then we use our subtle body still to bring it to a more subtle level of consciousness, what is called the wisdom empowerment, in which all the winds and energies absorb into our heart. And then, within this very subtle level of consciousness, we realize that everything lacks inherent existence through a state of great bliss, and we identify ourselves within this very subtle level of body and mind that realizes the true nature of reality and experience great bliss. Okay? Which is the ultimate state of Buddhahood, which is called the word empowerment. We stay in it as long as we can, and then from within that state, in order to help others, we manifest ourselves again in a gross body, and we commit ourselves to act in accordance with the teachings of Buddha, of Sutra and Tantra, and to be of benefit for every sentient being in our daily life. And then we are back into our normal life perception once again. Okay? So, I hope that with this, when you talk about 4 empowerments, there is some connection there. We can understand better why it is so important and what is the function of it and what we are actually doing. Okay? So, this is just, how to say, a simple explanation. I try to make it simple. Most of the times when I received explanation of all of this, I always received in a very complex way. So what I try to do here is to take my own understanding and put it into simple words. And I apologize if I said anything that is not correct. Okay, which may be, but let's say I take the risk to share with you my own understanding, because somehow I believe that my own understanding, it may not be perfectly correct, but it's maybe better than nothing. And then, and if we just keep with the names and the metaphors and the symbology, it's too far from our culture. And most of us don't have the time to dedicate so many years to reflection and to gradually grasp at the meaning. And one of the characteristics that Rinpoche brought with self-healing was saying, one of the characteristics of modern time is we have no more the context in which you dedicate your full life only to this, and then gradually you understand things. We need to open the secrets. We need to make the actual meaning available to everyone so that we can practice. Because these are things that normally we realize and understand after a process of 30, 40 years of meditation and practice, and gradually you come to understand it. No? And when you do in this gradual way, it is very, very powerful and very profound, and it works very well. But what I see is that for most of us, if we don't have some level of understandings, we even don't make it. We don't do it because we don't really know what is happening. And most of us don't have even the opportunity to dedicate our life just to the meditation practice of Tantra for 40 years of our life until we start to understand something. No? If we understand. So what I just tried to do is I tried to share my own understanding. This understanding, I had the opportunity to share it with people that I believe that have a better understanding than me. Okay? And I had a positive feedback from them. I don't need to say who they were because otherwise looks like this is their understanding. They said to me that was okay. So I'm just bringing to say, okay, this is my own understanding. It can be right and it can be wrong. Okay? I'm saying in this way because some of the aspects that I have explained to you are not things that we find normally written. So based on that, it's part of my own, and part is what it's written, part is what I was taught, its part is my own understanding. So the part of my own understanding may be right and may be wrong. But you can take it as a way, as a key to try to help you to have your own understanding in it, okay? But I preferred somehow to share it openly with everyone than just to give, how to say, the external appearance and leave each one to your own conclusion, because it's not something that happens so easily. So I preferred to do it this way. Okay. So we will now do our final dedication for today, and then in the afternoon we will conclude these teachings, and we will see a little bit of what is called, very briefly, the 9 mixings, because the 9 mixings show us how, if we really make it, it's possible to reach enlightenment. It's showing, for me at least, very clearly these steps, okay? And then, after that, we go through the Oma Hompe, Om Hong A, the so-called Vajra recitation, okay? It's actually a representative Vajra recitation, but we explain it afterwards, okay? Sa-e-shi apeke chukshi meto chan-ri-rab ling-shi nide genpa-di Sangye shinto mikte ulwar-ki Drokun namda shingla che-par Jetsun la-me kutse rab-ten-chi Namkar trinle chokchur gepadang Losan tempe drume sasom ki Drove munsel taktu ne gyur chi Yidam guru ratnamandra tayami Kyewa kuntu yanda lama dang Dralme cheki pela longche ching Sadan lamge yente rabzo ne Dorje change kopa nyurtobe sho Nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan delek shin Ninsen takto delek pe Koncho sumki ngodrubot sol Koncho sumki trashisho